So, being a writer for the Courant, have you heard things from the NHL? Have you gotten wind of things, or any responses or anything like that?
Not from the NHL directly. I think I hear that Hartford's in the conversation again.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that's the big thing.
Right.
I think for a lot of years it was just assumed that Hartford was over and done, and there was no way the league would go back. I think everything that's happened from the summer festival right up through the Whale Bowl, the rebranding, reminding people of how popular the name, the logo is. You know, people would see the logo out there. You know, when that Adam Sandler movie, remember he had a T-shirt.
And Megan Fox.
Megan Fox. The hats are around. I was in Maine on vacation earlier this summer, and we're on a beach, and there's a kid wearing a Whalers hat. And it's just like you see him everywhere. And I think people around the country are sort of aware of that, but maybe they need to be reminded, well, behind that is this movement to get a team back. And so I think that's, you know, there's a lot to this. There's the corporate side, there's the political side, and just the branding of it, and sort of, you know, how it's perceived by the rest of the country and by North America. There's more of an, I did an interview with a radio station in Canada last year, talking about the Whalers, and you know, this is after the rebranding. So I think there's a buzz, and it's in the discussion. I think having Howard involved, having the Baldwins involved, automatically opens some doors, and that
was explained to me by a very important person in Hartford, who said that yes, Mr. Gottesdiener started the ball rolling again, and he started with, you know, having an NHL rally, getting the NHL to listen again. There were certain things he had to do that probably should have been done differently, stepped on some toes maybe, but what happened was it opened that door again, where it lay dormant for many years. And then, of course, when Mr. Baldwin came back, his history speaks for himself with the Whalers, with Pittsburgh Penguins, and all of that. And you talk about Canada. I was at NASCAR, and we talked about this at another show. These two French guys sat down next to me, and I had a Whalers hat on, and they're like, "Oh, the Hartford Whalers," and I said, "All right, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't like the Canadians." And they're laughing, and by the end of the race, we were best of friends. And the first thing out of their mouth after saying hi was, "When are they back? When are they coming back?" So Canada believes the Hartford Whalers are coming back. So it's very neat to see how these guys from Montreal are ready to come to Hartford for games. So it was pretty cool.
I actually think, Canadians had a lot of respect for the market. And I think in, you know, especially the old WHA cities, they remembered the market. I think probably more than, you know, like Boston. You know, the Boston media kind of has always looked down on the market. They, you know, they're more dismissive. I think, you know, the Canadian media, it's interesting. They actually, the idea that the team could come back, it's not far-fetched for them, you know. So
well, I think they're still hoping about Quebec. And it's a valid point. I mean, look at Winnipeg got their team. Mr. Baldwin and the Whaler Sports are following that blueprint. It has to be done. It has to be done a certain way. If Winnipeg can do it with a 15,000-seat arena, oh wait, we already have one that can be used in the short term until the economy bounces back. If Mr. Baldwin and Whaler Sports does that, then I think you're going to win a lot more hearts, taxpayer hearts, that aren't footing the bill for it. And I think it's more of a reality more than a pipe dream, like everyone used to say. It's just irritated the snot out of me that they sat there. Oh, it's just a pipe dream. Oh my God. So to watch them go through the motions, watching Winnipeg, you know, that's very important.
Well, it is. It provides a blueprint, exactly. And they had an AHL team, and they drew well. The support never died. You know, the candle was lit all those years. You know, and I think that's happened. You talked about other markets, and where is there a movement? Is there a movement in Seattle? Is there a movement in Milwaukee? I don't think so. You know, it's like it's not. It's different. I mean, you know, when Minnesota lost a team, and that's such a great hockey market, people kept. They demanded a replacement, and they got it.
And we're there now. We just have to get more people to jump on that bus and make sure we're all knocking together. It can happen. Hartford needs it.
I think. I mean, you know, the time frame. Who knows? But I think, you know, one of the things, it's been 14 years, right? And a lot of people are gone.
The problem is we went out on the streets, and the first thing that came up was after we left doing those interviews was I couldn't believe how many people had forgotten.
Yeah.
It's starting to be, did that really happen back then?
Right.
And I'm like, no, this is bad. We have to start pushing more so than ever before because they're forgetting about them. And it's impossible to do that because if our goal is for the NHL, we just cannot have people forget about the Whalers. Yeah. So
I mean, I think when it becomes more tangible, you know, if the building is retrofitted, if you know, there's something real that comes out of the NHL offices.
Sure.
People will start to get on board.
And that's important. And I respect Mr. Baldwin and Whaler Sports for doing what they have to do. And hopefully there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And something like this is only helping them push that NHL market.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and we've hit on it a lot. The Baldwins, you know, have created this entire new feeling in this city, and it's the largest city without a pro team.
Yeah.
You know, it's impressive that in this short amount of time, which I still think is because we're looking at, you know, roughly 10 months here that they've put this all together. Do you or do the Current do they have expectations of Howard Baldwin and his ideas, or are they kind of reserved, waiting to see what's next?
I think what has occurred in the last 10 months is about what I expected, and you know, I think he's masterful at branding and marketing. Don't forget he took over the team just weeks before the season started. He didn't have a lot of time to really prepare.
No, he did not.
And
he doesn't get that fair break, really.
No,
I think there's a fair amount of people out there that are looking for him to fail as well.
Yes.
Because they say, "Well, told you so."
Yeah.
Right.
But I believe in the short amount of time, look at what happened that opening night.
Yeah.
Right.
You heard the Brass Bonanza.
Right.
Who everyone knows when you hear something music-wise, it brings you to a place.
Right.
And those people were in that place again.
Yeah.
And you know, whether it was Jeff Jacobs' article who said there was only a bunch of games that ever hit the 10,000.
Yeah.
But the two that hit 13,000 was when they retired the numbers of your Whalers.
Yeah.
Right.
And the rebranding game.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was back.
Yeah.
The magic was in the bottle again.
The atmosphere that night when they
Awesome.
rebranded it was awesome. It was
it was a different.
It was quite a bit different, and again, but you know, it's funny. There were old timers, and I say old timers, people our age who remember the old days when they played Brass Bonanza, and then there were just so many kids who were wearing Whaler shirts who know the song, you know, as like this sort of historical artifact, maybe connected with Hartford, but it's also played, you know, in various
But
games.
what I saw was what I've dreamed about as a father. Sitting there with my son, who's 16 now, and I told him, I said, this is what it's about, passing the torch to the next generation. Yes, the Connecticut Whale puts a great product on the ice. They do a good job, just like the Wolfpack did. And yes, I'm very critical of what happened in the change, but they kept hockey alive.
Yeah,
and that's the most important thing. Credit, where credit has to be done, is they kept hockey in Hartford. But to have my son there, and I told him, I said, my goal is, before I go, that we watch a Hartford Whalers game together again. And he goes, I think it'll happen. He's set on it.
So. He's optimistic.
But it's great to see the transition of the fathers and the kids. It's great.
Right.
Now, you've written for the Current for some time. I believe you told me 21 years ago.
21. 22?
22 years ago?
Wow. 22 years ago.
Wow.
1989, so it'd be 22.
Oh, there you go. So in that time, what players have impressed you over that time that played here in Connecticut? Do you have any players that really meant something to you?
You know, I covered the team in the early 90s. Weren't great teams, you know. And remember, the lockout year was actually a year where I was actually on the beat.
Oh, wow.
And then I never really covered many games. And then I got the Red Sox beat and moved on. But, you know, I used to love Patty Verbeek back in his day.
Great guy.
He was just, you know, he was so entertaining to watch, you know. The little ball of hate that he became known as. But that's what, when you think about him back in those days here, he was just relentless and, you know, built like a fire hydrant, you know. He was just, you know, he was fun.
It was like when you got Deneen and him together.
Yeah.
You had both of them, the energy,
Right.
and
Well,
they
I
just
love
pester
Deneen
you.
too. Yeah.
Deneen is just a class act.
I remember the night that Ronnie Francis was traded, being in the office and having to run down into downtown bars and get reaction. You know, like a high school writer, and I was in the office that night, and I realized, you know, it's funny having watched him. You really understood what he meant to the franchise. I mean, people were just so upset.
Angry.
Yeah, angry. Yeah, and that was sort of the beginning of the end, you know, in a lot of ways.
Well, you know.